everybody who's here at Book Passage in Corte Madera and all of you who are online too. Thank you so much for joining us for this super exciting event. Before we go any further, I just want to do a couple of bits of housekeeping. Our bathrooms are in the other building, so you go out our front door and to the right into the other building and ask for a key. All of you, I want you to silence your phones. You're not going to need them for the next hour. We're going to have a really, really fun event. Is there anyone here who's new to Book Passage? Oh, I want to especially welcome all of you. Thank you so much. And for those of you who've been with us before, a big, big thank you to you. You know, we've been here for over 43 years. Yeah, that's a big deal. That means that we've outlasted Amazon, COVID, the box stores, the recession, all of it. And it's all because of you and on the amount of support that you bring to Book Passage. And for those of you who are online, thank you too. We really appreciate it. And we do have amazing author events, and we have a really fun one upcoming. It's called Smitten Kitchen. It's Smitten Kitchen with Deborah, whose name just walked out of my head. Perlman. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to that, and that's in the upcoming days. If you look on our website, we always have great authors, wonderful speakers, so just take a few minutes. We also have classes, Spanish, Italian. So when you support this bookstore, you're supporting more than just an indie bookstore. You're supporting an intellectual hub here in Marin. So thank you, and all you have to do to be part of this amazing institution is buy a book, and it's all good. So, but before I introduce you to Bruce, our beloved guest today, I'd just like to give a shout out to some really special organizations here in the Bay Area where you can adopt a cat or a dog. Here in Marin, we're super blessed because we have a number of shelters that are really, really good, and many of us, we all love our dogs. Many of us adopt dogs from these shelters, so I'm going to just give a quick shout out to some of them. You all know Marin Humane Society in Novato. But I also want to talk about Milo, which is across the bridge in Richmond. Milo, I can't say enough about how amazing Milo is. They've saved literally tens of thousands of dogs and cats, mostly coming from the Central Valley and the Bakersfield area of California, where there's a really dire situation. They're an amazing group. And when I walk dogs, I often ask, you know, where's your dog from? And many, many people tell me Milo. It makes me so happy. Another organization I want to shout out is Compassion Without Borders. They're up in Sonoma, but what they do is different. It's run by a woman named Dr. Christy Campbell, who's a veterinarian. And what she does is she pulls all the medical cases out of the Central Valley. That means dogs that have been hit by cars, that have parvovirus, that have other diseases, heart diseases, etc. So this is a group of dogs that would never be adopted otherwise. So she's saving lives of dogs, and she has an amazing, I hate to say it sort of, but collection of dogs for people to choose from. And then last but certainly not least is Muttville Senior Dog Rescue Organization. Muttville's in San Francisco, and their mission is to save senior dogs, many of whom have been left behind when people pass away or have other issues and have to leave their older dogs behind. And these again are dogs that do not normally get adopted in our system. So that's a very special organization. But today we have a very special guest who's written a wonderful book narrated by Clancy, a golden lab, who has obviously whispered his story directly into Bruce's ear. Bruce Cameron certainly knows dogs, and Clancy is no exception. Bruce really gets Clancy, but Clancy has a lot to say. Bruce grew up with dogs, and like me, I also grew up with dogs, and I was loved by dogs and loved each and every one of them in return. But when I read these special books, I often think about my dogs, and I think about Bruce's dogs too, and of course the dog characters. But I kind of imagine Bruce sitting in his writing studio, just typing his books out while his beloved dog is just waiting patiently for him for that promised walk, right? These dogs are so patient, and that's good for us because we get great books as a result. So thank you to Bruce's dogs. So Bruce has written well over 30 books, including this series, A Dog's Promise, which we all know and have have loved for so long. These books have been adapted into. Here I am, really into the adoption thing. In fact, look, today I even decided to wear my Adopt Don't Shop T-shirt. These books have been adapted into movies and TV shows, and just they're just loved by everybody. So today. No, I wanted to say one other thing. When I read these books, I feel like I'm holding love in my hand. It's really true because I could feel the love on the pages. I feel the love that Bruce has for the dogs and that the dogs have for him. It's really clear to me. Anyway, here at Book Passage, we knew a whole lot of you would want to buy this book. We absolutely knew that. We ordered tons of them and we sold out. And then we ordered tons more, and we sold out. And then we ordered tons more, and they were promised to us to come last Wednesday. And some of them did, but as you know, on Wednesday we had an atmospheric river, and today we're promised another one, and it's been kind of horrible weather, and the airlines have been a mess. So some of the books did not come. So I'm afraid we may run out today. And if we do, and it's because y'all love him so much. But if we do, what we'd like to do is sell you the book, which you won't get right away, but sell you a book. Bruce is going to make a nice little book plate. And on that book plate, he'll make your message and he'll sign it. And we will ship the book to you for free, or you can pick it up here at the store, whatever's more convenient for you. And it's important because, the way the book business works, the books that sell the first 2 weeks or so that they come out really make a difference in where they land on the New York Times bestseller list and all the other Cron bestseller lists, et cetera. So if you would, and if you're thinking about buying the book, today would be a great day to do so we could help Bruce elevate the book along the way. And Bruce has also offered to have you take photos with him, so it's all good, okay? So thank you for listening to that piece of it, and we really apologize. We do have some books, so if you haven't bought one yet, be the one to do it today. And of course, I'd like to introduce to you the most wonderful guy, fabulous author, Mr. W. Bruce Cameron. And this is Muchacho, who came from Compassion Without Borders from behind a bus stop in Juarez, Mexico. And he's going to be joining Bruce, I'm sure, for some of the talk.
And he's been waiting for that bus ever since. Okay, so on the way over here, I was talking to Catherine Machon. I'm going to introduce her because she's the co-screenwriter of A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Way Home, and A Dog's Journey, all based on my books. Catherine, wave. So if you're smart, you'll get your picture taken with her. She's the good-looking one of the family. I look like this. So I was talking to her on the way over here, and I said there's a difference between the way I talk to a group of, say, 300 people or 30 people or 3 people. And I really appreciate you coming out during the middle of what was forecast to be the storm of the century. And well, we got a panic call from my publisher saying, we're going to have to cancel everything. There's this river. We don't even understand what that means. They're in New York, We don't understand, but there's there's a river in the sky, and they're just picturing the Mississippi coming overhead and then landing right here. And they said, nobody's going to come out. You're not going to have a single person. And I said, I bet you Northern California, I bet you they've seen rain before. Call me crazy. So but I do know that it's raining, and furthermore that the Kansas City Chiefs start playing in 15 minutes, and I imagine that's where most people are right now, is watching that game. Go Chiefs. Is that football? That was the funniest joke all day. So I really think that we'll be better off if we have an interactive, like you ask me questions and we talk to each other, rather than me stand up here and do 45 minutes like I'm a stand-up comic. I'm not a stand-up comic. I can stand up. That's as far as that goes. Is this working? Oh, I thought Zach was running off to say it's not working. Nobody can hear him. It's the yeah. But I want to thank all the dogs that are here for coming out. They're my biggest fans. so I just thought we would have a conversation. We would talk about whatever you want to talk about. I imagine you came here thinking it was the topic would be something. I didn't bring my dog. My dog Tucker is with the dog sitter. I just got word. Tucker ate all the tiles from the Scrabble set. Oh, no. Yeah, so there he's at the vet waiting. You know, no word yet. He's gonna have a bad spell. I might use that next time. Yeah, I like that. Okay, that's the dog joke for the day. So just to start, does anybody have a question that you just are burning to ask right now? And like there is no score yet, so don't ask me what the score is. Darlene.
Oh, would you use a mic because we're recording it for?
Oh, for sure. So I'm in the middle of listening to you read me Love Clancy.
Ah.
And so I need to know, are you going to do more of those? Because please
Oh.
do.
Okay, so what you're talking about is I read the audio version of Love Clancy, and I'm not an actor, and yet the ball has really moved when it comes to the audiobook segment, because now what we're seeing is that people expect that the author or whoever's reading will be able to do all the voices as different characters. And I have trouble doing me as a character. So I was reading Love Clancy, and you put the cans on, and so you can't hear anything but yourself. But every once in a while, the director will pop into your head, like the voice of God, or maybe you're hearing voices, and that's a bad sign. And she would come on and say, "Bruce, you've got to stop laughing," because some of the characters in Love Clancy just crack me up so much. There's Maddie, who just mentioning her makes people laugh. Maddie is so irritating and crazy, and she keeps breaking up with JB, who is Clancy's person. And JB says, "Well, don't we have to have dated before you can break up with me?" So Maddie keeps showing up like every day to break up with JB, and then JB needs a woman in his life. He's realized that he hasn't had much luck in that area. And there's Alana, who pulls a gun on him the first time that they meet. There's Dominique, who is alluring, but she lives with a man named Bedford, who doesn't seem to own a shirt or need a shirt. So that's JB, and then Clancy has fallen in love with the most beautiful dog he has ever smelled. It's Phoebe. But Phoebe seems more drawn to a Shar-Pei, which really disgusts Clancy, because Clancy is a yellow lab just like this. And this could be we'll do some tryouts later. We'll see. So the thing about Clancy is that he knows how a dog is supposed to be. A dog is supposed to be full of joy. A dog is supposed to bring everything happy to a situation. And Shar-Peis are just kind of stiff. And they hold their head still, because if they shake their head, all their skin comes over their eyes. And it really disgusts Clancy to be in a competition for Phoebe's affections with this dog, this Shar-Pei. So all that made me laugh. And then I'm reading the book, and the director kept saying, "You've got to stop laughing," But I think I've written a lot of dog books. I've had 34 books published, and I think 28 of them are all about dogs. And or told from a dog's point of view. So Clancy is the funniest of all of them. And it really has to do as much with the people as it does with Clancy's sort of goofy interpretation of what's going on in the world of his people. Because here's the thing about dogs. No matter what's going on, they just accept that we must know what we're doing. And of course, we human beings know that very often we're just faking it. But as far as Clancy is concerned, yeah, there's a reason why during this drive across Kansas when there's a tornado, there's a reason why we decided to all hide up under the underpass while the van took a car ride on its own and went away, Clancy thinks, well, that's just how they decided to do it. So that stuff makes me laugh. So I'm really intrigued. I thought people were going to be calling Audible and saying, "What happened? You used to have professional narrators." But no, you like it.
Perfect. Oh my God, you're the perfect voice for a dog.
Oh, wow. Very good. What is your question, miss?
Well, since we've heard you're the perfect voice for a dog, maybe you'd like to read us the first diary entry from the book.
That sounds like a planted question.
From a wife and a director? Yes, it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, picture how joyous that is for me. I'm married, and she's a director, so I get instructions from two people instead of one. All right. Well, because an anonymous guest asked for it, I'm going to read you the first diary entry of Love Clancy, and I think this will give you a sense of what the book is like. Dear Diary, the cat is despicable. Even her name is dreadful, Kelsey. My name, Clancy, carries with it all the fun and love that a wonderful dog can bring to the world. The name Kelsey has none of those qualities. The name Kelsey sounds like, well, a cat. I don't understand it, but before my person, JB, brought me home, he was living here by himself with this deplorable creature. Meanwhile, I had been looking for JB in the world. As a puppy, I lived with a nice woman with many dogs, then a tired woman with a baby, then a man with wonderfully dirty fingers, but never with anyone who felt quite right, because they didn't seem to have time for me. A dog needs more than shoes to chew. I always stumble over that. A dog needs more than shoes to chew and bowls of food to eat. Without a person, our person, we are lost. And we know who our person is. It is the human who commits to loving us unconditionally. All the people liked me, of course, because I am a wonderful dog. But none of them completely opened their hearts to me. Then I met JB, who I loved from the moment I sniffed his outstretched hand. When I bounded in the door for the first time, Kelsey was standing in the hallway. Let it be known to all dogs and humans that I was willing to be friendly, even loving, toward this tiny, strange animal. I could only assume she would feel the same way about me. Who doesn't love a happy dog? Kelsey, that's who doesn't love a happy dog. Her eyes became slits, and her sneering lips drew back from her evil teeth, and her back arched impossibly high, and her claws extended, and she emitted the most awful spitting sound, like a snake or something getting ready to attack a snake. Then she turned and fled, something she came to do less and less as she became accustomed to my presence. Now she is not at all intimidated, which is humiliating. She pads around the house, silently looking for victims. Oh, she has JB fooled. His pants are often befouled with her rank odor from the way she presses up against him, rubbing her head and making that hideous, weird purring sound she emits while pretending to be an animal capable of affection. She's putting her scent on him so I'll know she was there. Everything she does in the house is deliberately provocative. This is not an animal to be trusted. And so today, I am making the decision. Actually, I have known it for quite some time, but finally I am allowing myself to admit it. I must get rid of the cat. Love, Clancy. So here's the thing about yellow Labradors. They're not particularly known for strategic planning. For Clancy to come up with a plan to get rid of the cat, to win the affections of Phoebe, and to find and somehow put together a suitable mate for his person, JB, is probably pretty much three things beyond what he can manage at any one time. So Clancy just makes his way in the world looking for opportunities to execute on his brilliant plan. I think that the most coherent thought he has around this is, if I eat all the cat's food, she'll have to leave. And it doesn't work out that way. So that's Clancy. He's really goofy. He's really funny. He goes through life trying to figure out what's going on with JB's love life. JB has other characters to worry about. His father lives in town. His father's essentially a failed con man who thinks he's a brilliant investor because he participated in the pool that bought a ticket to the Powerball and it won. So now the father thinks of himself as being a man of limitless resources, and he walks around saying he's a brilliant investor, which he's not. And there's a whole subplot having to do with a restaurant. I was a silent partner in a restaurant once. I would have to say I was silent just because I wasn't audibly screaming, but I was certainly crying a lot. And I have often said that I will someday write a book called Never, Ever, Ever Invest in a Restaurant Ever. And so you can guess how my experience went. And so there's a whole thing having to do with a restaurant that's semi-based on something that really happened to me. And that's if it sounds like this book kind of is all over the place, that's because human lives are kind of all over the place. But Clancy's in the middle of it, faithfully watching it all go down. So thanks for that. Thanks for. And will I do more? So the audiobook of Love Clancy was a real experience for me. I can't say that I enjoyed it. It's sort of like, but at the end of it, it's sort of like when you're first coming out of surgery and you think, oh, that wasn't so bad. It was like that. I think we've made the strategic decision that I'm going to read all of my audiobooks going forward, thanks. But in the case of Lacey's story, which is one of my puppy tales, Lacey's story was read by Catherine Michon, who is an accomplished actress and among her many talents. And so she read it, and I just listened to that one recently, and she did an amazing job. I enjoyed that book so much listening to it. I thought the author wrote it pretty well, but I thought the narrator was really good. All right, did anybody else bring another great question like that one? Yes, what's your question?
Any chance that The Dog Master is going to be made into a film?
Okay, so The Dog Master is, if you've never heard of it, it's one of my books. I wrote it. It's about the Paleolithic, so it's based on my life history. It's about the turning point in our survival as a species where we were not doing well. There was not enough human beings to fill a stadium. And we were actually on the downslide. We were competing with all these huge predators. We were living under really terrible conditions and just eking out a living, mostly as scavengers. We were trying to hunt. Our tools for hunting were these sticks with sharp stones tied to the end of them, which is not advanced technology, but that was the best we could come up with at the time. We were competing with the Neanderthals, who were doing pretty well. They were not taller, but they were really solid. They were much more muscular. They were faster. There's not a single Neanderthal who wouldn't be playing for the NFL today, including the children. And so they really looked like they were going to come out ahead, and yet we wound up in the literal driver's seat. And it was because we introduced a disruptive technology. We domesticated the wolf, and the wolf became our hunting partner. And so as we were trying to survive, we now had, instead of we would attack the European giant deer, whose antlers would be above the ceiling, we would attack that animal with all we had. And the animal would be irritated with all these sticks poking it, so it would take off running, bleeding. And by the time we caught up with it, it'd be encircled by wolves, or there'd be the panthera, the European cat who had a paw the size of a pie plate. This thing was enormous. And we're not going to go running up to that thing, I don't think. But once we had the wolves, they could worry the prey, they could take it down, and then they could guard it until we got there. Changed everything. And so this story, The Dog Master, is the story of the very first dog, the very first moment where a human decided that a wolf puppy would make a good companion. And it's all imagination. It would make a sense. I think it would make a great series, like a competitor to the Game of Thrones, because it's so complicated. It's about tribal warfare. There's a lot of characters. It's one of the only books when parents say, I'm going to get my kid every single book you've ever written. I say, well, read The Dog Master first, because it does have really adult-themed stuff in there. Cannibalism, incest. There's some things that happen because it's a Paleolithic. They didn't have all their rules typed out at that point. And so I urge parents to be careful when they introduce that. But I have had kids read it and they loved it. So I hope. We certainly, Catherine and I wrote a pilot that I think is just stunning. People read it and they gasp at the end of it because of the twist. And yet it would be really expensive to make, because we would have to have, the short-nosed bear, which was a bear the size of an elephant. Who are you going to get to play that? Jim Carrey is going to play. No, I don't know how we're going to do that. So, yeah, great question, though. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for loving The Dog Master enough. Good.
Thank you. I didn't know anything about you when I walked in, so.
Neither did Catherine, so that's okay.
I guess my question would be, how would you describe sort of the characteristics of the dog's point of view? Preface that my only point of reference is that some years ago, I did read the Art of Racing in the Rain, which was a great book, terrible movie. So that's my question.
Okay. So thank you for mentioning my main competitor in the dog narrator space. Well, first I'll just point out a difference, and I thought The Art of Racing in the Rain was a great book too. I loved reading it, but I did notice that when I write dogs, they're real dogs. Clancy is probably the most unreal dog that I've ever written about, because Clancy is keeping a diary, and my dog Tucker doesn't keep a diary. He doesn't even answer his email. But the difference is, so it starts out with this. I start out with the underlying personality quirk, if you will, of dogs, which is that they are full of joy. They just can't. You don't see a dog in a bad mood. Dogs don't say, "Oh, this was a terrible day." In fact, one time I was going somewhere and I took Tucker. We were going to go together. We get down, we get in the car. Then I realized, I can't leave. I got something else I have to do. And so I had put him in the car, and he was all excited. Then I let him out of the car, and he gave me a look like, that was the greatest car ride ever. That's what I take into these books when I write from a dog's point of view, is their absolute attitude of joy. And then I like to write about dogs really not understanding what's going on. I have a children's book series called Lily to the Rescue. It's a little dog who was rescued off the streets and then lives at the animal rescue. It's a chapter book. It's for kids that are just starting to read, who have given up picture books and have moved on to the next level. And Lily is constantly helping to save baby animals by accident. Like the things that Lily does, she doesn't really know that they're contributing to rescuing an animal in distress. She just goes through life as a dog. And that's kind of how I see Clancy, and that's how I wrote the book A Dog's Purpose. And that one was the first dog POV book. And it really captured for me the spiritual nature of dogs. The way, people say, well, I look into my dog's eyes and I see an old soul. I look into Tucker's eyes and I say, oh, this is your first trip. But so a dog can be wise or it can be silly, but they're always happy. They're always optimistic. And so you just even my books that really touch on people's hearts, like A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Journey, or the ones that are much more adventuresome, like A Dog's Way Home and A Dog's Courage. That's a series about a dog who gets lost. But however I write it, for whatever is the point of view, that it starts with that. It starts with they're real dogs. They don't understand most of what's going on. They don't understand English. They don't know what an inch is or a minute. Their frame of reference is completely different. And I honestly believe, and I write about this in one of my most recent books. I think it was, it's a book that's coming out in August. That's why. So don't get that one yet. I write about how dogs don't really understand the nature of time. Like I think a dog thinks in terms of that was a short interval of time or a long interval of time. But a long interval could be months. And I don't think they sit there and they say, wow, it's been months. I think they just are like, oh, it's been a while since I've gone swimming or whatever it is, if they even think about that. I mean, they're very much in the moment. So Art of Racing in the Rain, the dog, Enzo, could understand English. My dogs never really understand more than the standard vocabulary of a couple hundred words. They write in a more sophisticated. I have to have if I wrote a book that was only 200 words, we've all read that one. It's see Jane run Jane run. So I had to explore a more sophisticated vocabulary, but it's sort of like if I'm translating the dog's thoughts into human language. That's how that works. So you're going to love my books. I mean, you are. No, this is a command. You are going to love my books. If you start with A Dog's Purpose, that's the book that has sold millions of copies. It was made into a movie that Catherine and I co-wrote, and so it's a better movie. And so I would start with that. Your question.
Hi.
Hi.
I haven't read your books, but I adopted a dog this year. And so when I saw it was a dog event, I had to be there. And just hearing about your varied stories, I'm curious just more kind of your creative process. Like, how did you, I think a lot about my dogs not understanding time and just some of the points you've made. And so how have you come up with the different topics of your books? Do they just pop in your mind, or is there some sort of trajectory you're going for? There's so much to write about. I'm curious.
Yeah, the way I write has always been a little different than a lot of writers I talk to. They'll talk about how they had this character, and then they started thinking through what would happen, and I think through what would happen. I start with the events, and then I plug into it the characters, which is kind of like how a dog goes through life, because a dog goes through life being a dog, and then something happens, and then they react to it. As I said, strategic planning, not really big on the list. So what my planning project or my process is to sort of begin with a series of events. Like with A Dog's Way Home, I was really upset that there was a breed-specific ban in Denver, Colorado, and the way that a dog was banned was that they decided it was a pit bull based on the testimony of 3 animal control officers. So if 3 animal control officers pointed to that dog and said, that's a pit bull, by law, it was a pit bull, and it was banished. And if they picked it up once, you paid a $175 fine, which a lot of people don't have. And if they picked it up a second time, they'd just put it down. And if you said that's not fair, you could appeal to the courts, but that would cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. And I just thought that was so wrong. So I wanted to write a book about that, and I wanted to include this crazy clause, and it wound up being A Dog's Way Home, who is this dog who is not a pit bull by our definition. You look at it and you say, God, it looks kind of like a Rottweiler Shepherd mix with maybe some pit in there. I can't tell. The dog on the cover and the dog that we adopted, that I'll tell you about the movie in a second, has some pit bull, but is mostly not. But that was the point. And then, so I came up with that, and then I thought, what would happen if the dog was banned? How would a dog react to being just, in the most bewildering of fashions, being exported out of town, taken all the way down to Farmington, New Mexico, because they had to get it away from the city while they try to figure out where they're going to live so they can keep their dog. And the dog is like, this makes no sense. And so the dog jumps the fence and makes her way back across the Rocky Mountains on the Colorado Trail. Takes a couple of years. So it's a couple of years of a dog living in the mountains. And I pictured what that was like. And then I threw in there that the dog is raised by cats. With the dog, when we first meet the dog, it's a feral dog living with feral cats. So the dog thinks of itself as being kind of like a cat. And when the dog meets a cougar cub on this trek, there's nothing more natural for Bella than to adopt this little helpless cougar kitten. And she thinks of it as her name is Big Kitten because it's already a big kitten, but it's still a kitten. And so we have a dog who is in the wilderness with this cougar. So as I'm just sort of describing to you, like really giving you the raw feed on how I come up with this stuff, and then I plug in the dog. Like, what is this dog like? And I decided that Bella was just so loyal. Bella, when the moment she meets Lucas, who's this med student who rescues her from underneath the house where all the feral cats are, the moment she meets Lucas, that's it. She loves Lucas. And her singular focus in life is to return to Lucas. And so then everything I write, it comes from the perspective of she's not worried about survival. She's not worried about anything but just getting back to Lucas. That's her focus. That seems to me to be the way a dog would think and the way a dog would approach this entire challenge. And it was a gloriously fun book to write. And then the next one in the series is called A Dog's Courage, and that one, the initial thing is, oh, come on, she gets separated from Lucas again. But it does happen because they're camping in the Rocky Mountains, and then there's a huge fire, and she gets separated by the fire from Lucas. And that leads her then to spend a very much shorter period of time, but a much more dangerous period of time trying to find her way back to Lucas. And once again, Bella is just not terrified, as we would be. That Bella is like, oh, there's a fire here. I better go there. That's just how dogs would handle that. Whereas I think we'd be like, there's a fire. That's how I would do it anyway. When we made the movie A Dog's Way Home, we, the producers, decided that every dog in the movie would be rescued. Every dog in the movie would have been rescued from poor circumstances, taken off the street or from a shelter, and put in the movie. Well, that was a difficult bill because in order to be able to fulfill that promise, the very first challenge we had is, well, who's going to be the star of this movie as a rescue? How do you rescue a movie star? So, I mean, I kind of think Gary Busey could use some rescuing, but different topic. So we were looking on websites, and we found, when I say we, I think it was probably Catherine, found this dog in a shelter outside of Nashville. And we said, we got to go meet this dog. And so when I say we, it was Catherine, who's a movie director, so she would know by looking at this dog, can this dog fill a movie screen? And does this dog have that face? And then we had a dog trainer who was along, to be able to say, this I can train this dog. I can make this dog into a star. And then I went along because I'd never had Nashville hot chicken. And when we went to pick up this dog, when we heard the story, we said, this is a wasted trip because this dog was living in a landfill. We didn't know if she had human company or not. The one person we knew she had contact with was this big old guy who said he was retired, who sat there in the junkyard with a .22 caliber rifle to shoot rats. And people would say, he's been shooting at this dog Shelby. He's been shooting at her too. He has not managed to hit anything because he's got a jug sitting next to his chair, and whatever is in the jug is affecting his aim. Otherwise, we might never have met Shelby, who we met, and she, within 15 minutes, I thought this dog was going to come out and be a wreck, traumatized, shy. This dog came bounding out and said, now what are we going to do? And the dog trainer, after 15 minutes, says, oh, I can work with this. And Catherine says, oh, this face is perfect for this movie. And I said, oh, let's go get lunch. So anyway, that's the story of Shelby. I liked this dog Shelby so much, I wrote it as one of my puppy tales. I have this series of middle grade books, and one of them is called Shelby's Story, and it is the story of this dog that we adopted who went from junkyard dog to movie star. And it's the only true dog book I've written. The rest are all fiction. I think it's on page 32, the artist has rendered a picture of the dog trainer, Catherine, and me at the red carpet along with Shelby. He drew me bald. This is not coming out. Okay, I'm losing it every day, but there's still hair here. So when I go to schools and a kid has Shelby's Story, I say, get a Sharpie and put some hair on the author's head. Thanks for that question. That was great. And what I love, by the way, you're wearing dog socks, it looks like.
Oh, of course.
Oh, that's perfect.
Paw prints. Oh, God. Thank you. I'm a newbie to you. You don't know me, but you should. Anyway, I appreciate your humor. I've had dogs all my life, and doodles are my specialty right now.
Great.
I love them. And have you ever consulted an animal psychic? College of Marin had a thing about learn what your dog is thinking and saying to you and that kind of thing. And I kind of fell for that. Nothing happened from it. But the idea of being able to see if your dog is thinking about something in particular or trying to communicate it to you. I know it sounds wacky, but have you ever delved into that?
Yeah, I mean, I have. My dog Tucker, I know what he's thinking. He's thinking bacon. But I have had dog psychics come up to me and tell me about what they're doing. I'm very intrigued by it. I'm not sure if I can figure out a way to work that into anything that I'm writing. I don't disbelieve it. I'm open to the possibility. I mean, I wrote a book about a dog who reincarnates. So for me to say, oh, dog psychic, I mean, that would be really hypocritical, wouldn't it? I do have people who say they can tell what I'm thinking, but and I say, well, I don't know how you can do that because I can't do that. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? I read one time about somebody who said, so I had a dog psychic talk to my dog, and the dog doesn't like it when I go to work. And I thought, well, you can kind of, like a lot of stuff that I'm like, yeah, that's how dogs are. That's how dogs are. So, but that doesn't mean there may be one of them, it may just have it. Absolutely. I don't know. That's a great question, though. Thank you.
Longtime fan, first-time listener. Huge fan. But one of the things that I love most about your books is that, and I think it's because it's coming from the point of view of a dog, you are so loving and like compassionate, even to your most vile characters, like Gloria or Sid or whatever. And like even as you described what happened in the junkyard, I just feel like there's this ability you have of like they're not villains, they're troubled characters. And I just wonder, is that how you see life? Or are you a dog? No. But I feel like that's the part for me that sold me from the beginning to like, and in this new book, like I never feel judgment, even while the dog is making descriptions that then we can apply our judgments to it. I feel like the loving nature of a dog, that's what's so tragic about dogs that are abused because they just love. But I feel like that comes through in your books. Like the dogs are never, if anything, they're maybe confused, but they're never harsh. And I just, I guess I don't really know that I can formulate this into a question. That's more of a statement. And since I have the mic, let's talk more. No, no, but I guess my question would be, how do you keep tapping into that faith in humanity? Because you're writing about sometimes some really sad and tragic disappointments for dogs where we didn't hold up our end of the bargain as people. And how do you not just get so depressed and and people are horrible and dogs are great, the end? Let's
go all the way back to the Paleolithic again. actually, though, I have a theory. It may be mine alone, but I was thinking about how when we as human beings started to domesticate dogs, you have to figure, and we called them probably whatever we called them then, but they eventually turned into the Shih Tzus and the Shar-Peis and the Labradors and the Dachshunds. But back in the beginning when we were just doing that, the people who had an affinity, the human beings who had an affinity for these canines that we were kidnapping as puppies from the wolf packs and raising to be our companions, those people had a far higher chance of survival than the people who said, I'll eat one, but I don't want to have one. And so over time, I think evolution blessed those of us who loved our dogs, just as the dogs came to rely on us. And when I mentioned the Shih Tzus and the Shar-Peis, I mean, there are other domesticated animals that can probably do without us. You know, there's a lot of cats who one day will say, you know, see ya, and they'll just leave. And you know, certainly there are a lot of horses. If you just open the barn door, they'd be okay. You just don't see a pack of dachshunds taking down a wildebeest. It just doesn't. So we bred out of them the capability of defending themselves. We formed a co-reliance, and part of it was an evolutionary process. So dogs are always going to look to us and love us, even if we're terrible people. And I think, you mentioned some of the villains. I would say Gloria is one of the scariest villains I've ever written. She's the mother in A Dog's Journey. In the movie version of A Dog's Journey, the producers just couldn't go there when it came to how bad a person Gloria is. They made her a drunk. And I'm like, okay, that's your go-to. But honestly, there's so much more to Gloria than just being a drunk. I mean, she's a narcissist. She's a terrible person, and doesn't really seem to love her child, which is really, most people are like, yeah, I can't take the idea that a mother doesn't love her child, although there are plenty of children who will say, you know, my mom wasn't really hot about me, but that's a different story. So the long way to answering your question is, from a dog's point of view, all humans are redeemable. All humans must know what they're doing. All humans are worth looking to for leadership and love. And the dogs that have been abused and the dogs that maybe are really suspicious and snappy and everything like that, think how twisted their world is, that they can't trust people. If a dog can't trust a person, that dog is a dog lost. And so I think we owe it to them to go to the shelters, as we were talking about earlier, and to help rehabilitate those dogs and teach them to trust humans again. If we can just do that, we can save that dog. And some of them have been too badly damaged, and that's a terrible thing. I don't believe in absolute no-kill, because I believe absolute no-kill means that eventually that shelter is full of dogs. They are not adoptable, and then you need another shelter. And so the dogs that have truly been twisted by whatever horrible thing had happened to them, it may be more, what is the word, humanitarian to put them down. Most of the time, though, I think a dog can be redeemed, and I would say give it a chance. That's what I would say.
Any other questions?
Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
I loved A Dog's Journey just because it was brought up, and I got like light bulb went on. I had no idea about the cancer stuff. Could you talk a little bit about that? And
Yeah.
how, I mean, that was several years ago, so I don't know how things have advanced since then. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's a great question, because I said that my books are fiction, but they've got elements of truth in them. And we met this woman named Dina Safiris, who was actually a long-term yoga friend of Catherine's. And Dina has a very interesting job. She trains dogs to detect cancer. And it turns out, just to compress a big topic into just a few sentences, it turns out probably all dogs can detect cancer. That cancer has an odor. And we now know that if we can train a dog to signal when they detect that odor, they are nearly always correct. There's almost no false positives and almost no false negatives, like almost none, like over 99% accuracy for these dogs. And where they're inaccurate, we think maybe they just didn't signal properly or something happened. She has trained the dogs to sniff from samples because though in the book, A Dog's Journey, the dog learns to detect cancer in humans, and they'll sit in a folding chair, and the dog will go by and then signal when somebody has cancer. Because that's how I think that would be great if we could do that. You could have a health fair, and the dog, just like a dog looking for drugs in the airport, the dog could circle up these folding chairs. The dog could walk up and down the aisles, and then if it stopped and signaled in front of somebody, that person needs to get a scan. And you can catch dogs can catch cancer at stage 0, which means curable, absolutely curable. You just have to find it because we have not yet been able to train dogs to, and I say we, she, Dina, and the other people working on it have not been able to train dogs to detect cancer of a specific type. Ignore your colon cancer and just focus on liver cancer. We can't do that. But we can say you've got some kind of cancer. But what the science is actually aiming for is test tubes. You expectorate into a tube, and then the dog comes and sniffs a line of tubes and signals at the test tube that has the saliva from somebody who's got cancer. And then they can track it back, and the accuracy is amazing. So there are some real barriers to rolling this technology out. I mean, how's the FDA going to feel about this, right? And how do you the whole thing? There's so many questions, but the big answer is it's a real thing. I brought it into the book. It's a hugely important part of a dog's journey because this is the same dog that's in A Dog's Purpose, which means this dog is being reincarnated, and Molly goes on to become other dogs who are reincarnated, and this knowledge doesn't go away. She's trained to sniff cancer, but then that doesn't go away. Thanks for bringing that up. It has been a long time since anybody's even talked about that. It's really a big deal. Yeah.
Sorry. Dina, who's our friend, you can teach them, there's other diseases. It turns out that their noses are like this incredible instrument. It's, why they can track people in the woods and all the things that they can do. And it feels to me like we should do a better job of, using it.
Tucker, wherever Tucker is in the house, if I'm making myself a sandwich, all of a sudden he's right there. He can detect sandwich. He's a sandwich detecting dog.
Okay. You feel anybody else have a pressing question before we wrap it up?
It has to be pressing. It has to be really critical.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you. Bruce will be signing his books, so please come up. We'll take photos of you with him, and just appreciate you being here. And books for sale at all of the registers if we have any left, and if we don't, as I said, we'll sell you a book plate and promise you to ship you the book thereafter.
Free shipping.
Free shipping, yeah. And if you want to donate to any dog charities, you can